Howdy folks, and welcome to the Hillbilly Kitchen. Today we're making a 2-ingredient flatbread. Now this is a super simple, super easy bread. Only 2 ingredients, and we even have lots of substitutes. And we even have 2 ways that you can make it. You can either make it like a regular flatbread and roll it out real thin and use it for wraps and all kind of things like that. Or you can make it a little bit thicker, and it's a naan bread. And I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. This is the Hillbilly Kitchen, but it's spelled N-A-A-N. And you can use that for pizza crust. You can use it for a dinner bread. Maybe brush it with some butter or oil that's infused with garlic or other herbs. And I mean, this is a really versatile, really easy bread. No yeast and no oven. You need a cup of self-rising flour. If you don't have self-rising flour, you can substitute all-purpose flour with 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder and about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And you need 1/2 cup of either sour cream or Greek yogurt. Whole milk yogurt is best. And you can substitute either one of those you want. And a little bit of extra flour for dusting your bread over here when you get it made. And all we're going to do is take a spatula and kind of mix this together. Just kind of fold your sour cream or your yogurt, whichever one you're using. And I have tried this recipe with both sour cream and yogurt. Now there is a slight difference in flavor and a slight difference in texture, but not very much. And it works for both kinds of bread with either sour cream or yogurt. And a lot of times you can get sour cream on sale when it's about to expire. And you can use it after the expiration date in this recipe. You can use it after the expiration date, period. Or if they happen to have yogurt marked down because it's about to expire, or maybe you're one of those folks who makes your own yogurt and you have lots of extra yogurt, this is a really good recipe for you. It's a good recipe for empty nesters or single folks because you can cut this in half and literally make just a couple of little pieces of bread because it only has 2 ingredients. It's good for big families because it cooks in 4 minutes, 2 minutes per side. So if you've got to make a whole bunch of it, double it or triple it, and you can feed a big family. And what you do is you mix this up, and then while you're getting the rest of your meal together, you're going to let it rest for about 20 minutes before you roll it out and cook it. And you just want to kind of knead it with your spatula until it gets doughy. And you might have to use your hands. Sometimes when I do this, I don't have to use my hands, and sometimes I do. But if you got to use your hands to get it to form into a dough ball, use your hands. Alright, once you've kneaded it until you've got it all stuck together, and that just took a minute. I did it right in the bowl there so it don't make a huge mess. You want to get it smooth, you know, so it looks like dough. This is not going to have the texture of like a biscuit. You know, we talked about biscuits before, and you definitely don't want to knead your biscuits like this. But for the flatbread or the naan bread, however you pronounce it, you want to get it smooth. Knead it just a little bit. I'm sure somebody will correct my pronunciation. Once you get it all smooth and looking like dough, you just want to divide it into 3 or 4 pieces. Kind of depends on how big you want it, what you're using it for. I mean, if you were using it for a pizza crust, you might want it all in one big piece. But 3 or 4 pieces, and leave it to sit on a floured surface for about 20 minutes. And you do want this resting time in here. Don't skip this part because it will be very hard to roll it out and get it in your pan, especially if you're doing flatbread, if you don't let it sit. If you're doing the thicker stuff, it's not quite so hard. Anyway, we're going to turn our skillet on, kind of a medium high. You want to get your skillet hot, and then we're going to flatten these out. Now, while you're waiting on your bread to rest, after you've mixed it up, you'll have time to get the rest of your dinner together. Whatever you're making for dinner, you'll have plenty of time to get it together. Now, if you want to make the thicker version of this, the stuff I can't pronounce, all you need to do is just flatten it out with your hands. You don't really even need a rolling pin. You can use a rolling pin if you want to, but you want to get it down to about 1/3 of an inch thick, because you don't want this too thick. It's not going to be a biscuit. It's way too elasticy to be a biscuit. And you can see here, maybe, as I'm mashing it out, it's kind of pulling back in on itself. That's because we kneaded it. It's going to be a soft, fluffy bread if you make it thicker, but it is going to be slightly elasticy, more than like a biscuit. So we'll show you the thicker version, which will be this one. And I think this pan is probably hot. Now, if you have a non-stick pan, you don't need any oil at all. In a skillet, you might need a little bit of oil in a cast iron skillet. We'll see. And if we need a little bit, we'll add a little bit. But you don't really want to fry it. You're kind of baking it almost like a hot rock method, only you're using your skillet instead of a rock. Now, if you want to make a flatbread, roll it out with a rolling pin. And whether you're making this thick or thin, you cook it about 2 minutes per side. And it should be browned on both sides. And even a little bit, if it's, a little bit over brown, that's okay. You want to cook it on at least medium, depending on your stove, maybe even medium high. And if you're doing the flatbread version, if you want to fold it over and make you a sandwich, you want to get it considerably thinner. I don't know what that is. It's a little less than 1/4 of an inch. And you can make it the flatbread again, however big around you want it. And we're just going to cook it about 2 minutes per side. And you're just going to have to keep an eye on it, because it doesn't have bubbles like a pancake, or you can set a timer. If you set a timer 2 minutes per side, that pretty much does it every time, I have found. But what letting it rest does is it makes it stronger. If you don't let it rest and you try to roll it out this thin, it's going to rip and your fingers are going to go right through it. And it's just going to make a mess, not a flatbread. So let it rest and then roll it out and make your flatbread. Okay, in about 2 minutes, it should be browned kind of like this. And you just flip it over, and 2 minutes on the other side. Now, if I was going to make a pizza out of this, I would cook it on one side, flip it over, add my toppings, and then maybe stick it in the oven and brown it. And that's all there would be to making a pizza on this. Now, I would definitely make my crust bigger than this for a pizza, bigger around. And I might do it a little bit thinner than that, but probably not. And, we had that at about 1/4 of an inch thick, and now it's probably 3/4 of an inch thick. So keep that in mind when you're rolling it out, how thick you want it to be. That's why I said the flatbread, you got to get it really, really thin. This is probably about 1/8 of an inch thick for the flatbread. And this is a handcrafted artisan bread that you can serve with a fancy dinner. Like I said, brush some butter or some oil over that's got some garlic or some kind of herbs in it, Italian seasoning or something like that, or even something different, something that you came up with all on your own. And people will think that you really spend a lot of time on it. And it mixes up in about 2 minutes and it cooks in 4 minutes. Now, you do have to have that resting time, and it takes a minute to roll it out. But you can do the whole rest of your dinner while you're letting it rest. This is one that kids will like to make. Let the kids help make this. Let them roll it out. Let them mix it. Just keep an eye on the pan there. But kids would love to make this. And it's something that just takes a few minutes. Now, I'm going to show you a trick. And if you like my tea towel, you can get one. Google Wildwood Bend. She makes these and sells them. You need a tea towel when you're making this. Because it gets done one piece at a time, you generally cook it one piece at a time. Now, if you were making it for a whole bunch of folks, you could set a griddle on your stove and cook, you know, several pieces at once. And there, that side is nice and brown. Look at how pretty that is. Handcrafted artisan bread. 2 ingredients. Put your bread in a tea towel and wrap it up. And as you cook it, stack it in the tea towel, and the moisture will stay in the bread, and it will stay very moist, and it will be much better. And not only that, it'll stay warm while you're cooking the rest of your bread. So the tea towel is kind of a must if you're making this bread. You need to get you one, and they sell tea towels everywhere, and they're not that expensive, and you can order them off of Amazon and stuff too if you want to. But wrap it up in a tea towel. It keeps it warm and it keeps it moist. Before we go, I'm going to answer one of my most asked questions. People are always asking me why I talk about Jesus in a cooking show. What's Jesus got to do with cooking? Well, John 6:35 says, "And Jesus said unto them, I am the bread of life. He that comes to me shall never hunger, and he that believeth on me shall never thirst." What better place to talk about Jesus than in the kitchen while we're cooking and making bread and feeding our families? So now you have the answer to my most asked question. And see how pretty the flatbread is? It looks like an artisan bread, something that you would pay a lot of money for in the store. In fact, I think I saw like a 4-pack of bread cooked like this in the deli the other day. And I want to say it was maybe $6 for 4 pieces of this. And you can make this for just a few pennies. So this 2-ingredient bread is definitely a keep it recipe, and you do want to let it cool in the towel for just a few minutes before you serve it and hold that moisture in with the towel. It kind of makes the bread, but I do want to show you it is soft if you make the thicker stuff, and it breaks nice. It doesn't crumble everywhere. It's not all dry, but part of that is putting it in the towel. So put it in the towel and wrap it up until you're ready to serve it. And, you know, bread that you can make where you are putting forth a total of maybe 6 minutes, 7 minutes of effort, that's something you can make for yourself. If you live alone, every single day you can have fresh baked bread. Or it's something that you can make for your family if you have kids, fresh baked bread. Instead of having stuff that's all processed and full of bad stuff. Keep this one, give it a try. Makes great sandwiches, great pizza crust, and a really good dinner bread if you add a little butter to it or oil, seasoned butter or oil. I want to thank you so much for joining us in the Hillbilly Kitchen. If you haven't already, I want to ask you to please click like and subscribe. Click the notification bell so that you know when we put up new videos, and share our videos with your friends. Until next time, remember to put God first.